Om Shri Sai Ram. Invoking the blessings of our Divine Mother, I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our dear Lord, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. On many occasions, we as students have heard Swami speaking about his divine mission and the institutions that he built over the years so passionately. Swami also kept repeating that he would eventually like some of his students to carry forward his mission and be the torch bearers. Dear elders, brothers and sisters, as part of the Samarpan program today, I have the pleasure of introducing one such alumni student, Brother Ravi Mariwalla, who was chosen by Bhagavan himself to be an integral part of his divine mission. Brother Ravi Mariwalla hails from Mumbai. He was blessed to be part of Vikas and Pre-Seva and spoke in Swami's presence in 1979 in Mumbai and again at Prashant Nilayam in the same year. From then on, he had a strong desire to study at Swami's college, and eventually in 1982, Brother Ravi joined in Swami's school at Prashant Nilayam. And from there, he continued for 9 years, completing his MBA in the year 1991. At Swami's college, he was part of the speakers group and the brass band and very actively participated in various service activities. Through these 9 years, he had many opportunities to interact with Bhagavan. His parents and sisters too were blessed by Bhagavan. He also accompanied Swami to Kodaikanal and Chennai during his college days. He was also the blessed recipient of 3 gold medals for distinction in M.Sc, MBA, and the All-Rounders Gold Medal from Bhagavan's own hands. The highlight of his time with Swami came when, after obtaining his MBA degree, Bhagavan asked him to work as one of the first employees of Sri Sathya Sai Super Speciality Hospital at Prashant Nilayam. Ravi served at the hospital for 14 long years in the cardiac surgery department, playing multiple roles, including serving as a full-time clinical perfusionist. Ravi considers it as a blessing to share with the community the memories, the learnings, and the insights he gained over the years. So let us all invite now Brother Ravi to share his personal experiences with the Divine Master himself. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. With loving pranams at Bhagavan's feet, I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share some of my very memorable and sweet experiences with Bhagavan during those cherished years that I spent as a student at Parthi. And of course, I did have a number of memories that I accumulated at Brindavan too. And as part of this Brindavan Samarpan program, this is becoming a forum for us to share some of those beautiful interactions and memories with the world at large. So thank you for that wonderful opportunity. As I start to think about my journey with Bhagavan, it strikes me that there were 3 big chapters, if you may, of my interactions with the Lord. The first section of my life, or the first segment of my life, is what I like to call the attraction phase. It was during those years that I spent as a Balvika student in Mumbai that I developed this great yearning to be one amongst that army of students that would march into the mandir and have those choice privileges and interactions with Bhagavan. And don't imagine for a minute that my love for Bhagavan was there from the beginning, not at all. In fact, during the time that I was in high school, I was getting into a very wrong set of company and going into bad company. And it is the timely intervention of Swami's unseen hand that stands out for me as one of the most beautiful beginnings of my interactions with Swami. And as I share these thoughts with you, I want you also to think about those first interactions you had with Bhagavan, because this talk is not just about me, but as I am sharing my ideas with you, I want you to raise in the palace of your mind, in the mansion of your mind, those first interactions that you had with Swami. And I'm going to share with you some of the meaningful and significant memories that I had as a Bal-Vikas student. And like I said, at that time I was, going into really bad company in high school, typical Mumbai convent school. And when I started this Bal-Vikas, attending Bal-Vikas, I had some amazing Bal-Vikas gurus who taught me with love and gave me the example of the Sai students and how they were standing out in today's society as a very different example for the world. And no sooner than did I make some corrections in my life, literally the phone rang, and my mother, who was like the president of the Sai Samiti in Bandra, got a call from none other than Sri Indulal Shah, who asked her if I was willing to speak in Bhagwan's presence. So what had happened is that Swami was making a sudden visit to Mumbai, and there was a very big function organized in Ghatkopar, which is a suburb of Mumbai, and they wanted me to speak there. I was a little boy of 13-14 years old, and I remember making that attempt to present some of my learnings as a Bal-Vikas student to Swami. Those were the years in which we were allowed to garland Bhagwan, and as you see in the pictures that are going to be shared now, Swami accepted my garland. And then during my speech, he continuously looked at me across the stage. But most importantly, after that talk, he materialized Vibhuti for me on the stage and made me sit at his side. And this memory is so vivid in my mind. It was like a private interview on a public stage. There were literally 30,000-40,000 people sitting in the audience, but Bhagwan was continuously talking with me, giving me an opportunity to ask him questions. And it is at that time that I mentioned to Bhagwan that, Swami, I would love to study in your college. And he asked me, in what grade are you? I said, Swami, I'm in the 8th grade. He said, you come after 10th. And I said to Swami, but my father doesn't believe in you. And the all-knowing Lord said, I know, mother को बहुत भक्ति है, लेकिन father को अंदर में है. Which means, I know your mother is very devoted, but your father also has devotion which is unknown to you, unseen by you, but I know that he has devotion. And over the next 20-25 years, as my life unfolded around Swami, it became evident to me that those words that Swami spoke for the first time with me on that stage, in so much chaos, noise, speeches, He didn't need to think and give me the right guidance, but right from that moment when I was blessed to have that interaction, up until right now, when I think about my mother and father and their connection with Swami, all those words stand out in my memory. So at this point, as I'm telling you all these things about my first interactions, I want you also to bring your first interactions to your mind and to thank Bhagavan, because had it not been for those first beautiful moments where he entered our life, where he came into a void, in the chaos, in the unplowed land of our heart, Bhagavan came in and he magnetized us and he sowed the seed of spirituality in all our hearts. So those first interactions that we had with Swami, let us thank him, let us show great gratitude to Swami for entering our life through those moments. Thereafter, when I joined the college in 1982, as most Sai students, I got an opportunity to be part of the Vedam group. Then I was part of the band, and those memories are exquisite. Those memories are really beautiful memories. And in the little time that I have, I'll share one or two beautiful interactions with you. So as early members of the brass band, there wasn't a brass band in the institute, and in 1985-86 time frame, Swami started investing in this brass band, and a number of beautiful gold-plated instruments came from the US. Now, most of us whom he selected to be in the band were not musicians. There were a few of us who were musicians, but by and large, most of us were not musicians. And Swami actually allowed us to develop that musical talent. He nourished it, and he would bring different VIPs to the hostel where we were practicing. To view our playing, to hear us play, and he would make excuses for the fact that we had not picked up much. So he would tell the VIPs or the guests who would travel with Swami that no, first they are learning to march, because this is a marching band, so they are not as yet started practicing songs. And then one day we were relaxing in the quadrangle in the hostel, which at that time was all sand in the middle of the building, and we were having some refreshments because we would practice our wind instruments for almost 14 to 16 hours a day. So we needed to take breaks, and at that time suddenly Bhagavan came in his red Benz and he walked into the quadrangle unannounced. We were all kind of caught unawares, and our instruments were left lying around different parts of the hostel building, and of course we ran and grabbed our instruments. But Swami, as he walked into the quadrangle, he noticed the kettle drummer. The kettle drum is the small drum. Swami noticed that one of the kettle drum sticks were lying in the sand, and very casually and coolly he bent down, picked up that kettle drum stick and put it behind his back. Now we were about 16-18 boys, we saw that, but what can you tell Swami, right? You cannot intervene at that moment, and you don't even know what he's doing. But Swami doesn't only have a big master plan for the hospital and the university, he has a master plan even in such small interactions where he is building the relationship with the students. And so the kettle drummer had rushed up to the third floor of the hostel, where there was the only phone in the hostel, and his parents had called in. So in a hurry, when that trunk call had come, he had dropped his drum and the sticks nearby, and he had gone to talk to his parents. Bhagavan had come in, casually picked up that stick, And this student who was talking with his parents knew that everything became silent in the hostel, and he looked down and he saw Swami standing down there. So he cut the call, he ran down, and Swami in the meanwhile told all of us, start playing. Now brass bands are all used to starting to play with the trigger or the go ahead of the kettle drum. There is a short drum beat that they play, and that gives the whole band the signal that they have to start playing. And we were so kind of acclimated to that idea of getting going with the drummer's beat that we could not start to play until the kettle drum gave that drum roll. Now when this student came, he grabbed his drum, he found one stick, but he couldn't find the second stick. 18 of us knew where the second stick was, but we could not communicate to this boy that the stick is behind Swami's back. And Swami was so mischievously looking around as if he couldn't figure out why we are not getting started with our song. And at that moment, the student went up to Swami and said, Swami, I'm not able to find the stick. Swami pretended to say, Yemi, stick antunaru? He's saying some stick. What stick does he want? Because Swami was not a member of the band. So he was pretending to ignorance with respect to the stick. What is this stick? And then when this boy was all sweat and concerned that Swami is going to be upset and so many boys are losing the chance to perform in front of Swami, Swami pulled out that stick very casually and said, Ide na vetuktunava, is this what you are searching for? And of course the boy relaxed and there was an uproarious laughter. All of us were, so calm and cool and enjoying that moment. And if time permits, I can tell you 5 such beautiful incidents just with respect to our interactions with Swami through the medium of the band. And the Leelas of Swami, we can keep on talking about it. But today, when 10 years have passed after Swami left the abode, the human abode, as we bring these incidents out, as we share, as we discuss, as we communicate these things, I think we've got to think about and appreciate how this God on earth tried to forge a beautiful, solid relationship with each student. The memories that he created for us were not a mass movement. The Sai organization, the Sai students community, these are not mass movements. Swami never used mass communication. Swami never communicated with us through another medium. He used our extracurricular activities, studies, opportunities, but the interactions that he had were direct. They were human. He was continuously coming down to our level, interacting with us through instances, through like this thing about the stick. How can I ever forget the mischief in his eyes, the startled feeling amongst the students that Swami, who is Bhagavan, who is worshipped by millions, could think of playing a prank like that, a heartwarming prank. And when I start to think about these incidents, I realize that during that attraction phase, what was most important is forming that bond with the Lord and solidifying that bond. And what was that bond? That bond was about us realizing that God is not some faraway star, not some idol in a temple or a painting in a church. Swami is the one who interacts with us on a day-to-day basis in the way that you and I can recognize and relate to. And He wants us to bring Him into our consciousness, into our memory through such incidents. Many other memories I have with Bhagavan, because I was then, I kind of transitioned into the speakers group. And at that time Swami began the MBA course, and the speakers group was allowed to be part of a lot of the first batch MBA interactions that Swami had with those boys. That was a really privileged group of, I think, 28 students in the first batch. And I remember in the foyer in the college, Swami would come. I think it was virtually every Sunday that Swami would speak. And at that time, when he was talking with the MBA students, he was starting to relate to MBA boys with examples of management. He was speaking about this famous acronym that he created on the fly, which is manager, MANAGER. And I think to some extent people have more or less forgotten that here was Sathya Sai Baba, the great spiritual master, the one who had written Sandeha Nivarini, Dharma Vahini, and who had, was giving discourses. But here with the MBA boys, he was talking about mind of man, awareness of Atma, nature of nation. And that's how he went on to elucidate what manager means. And he was talking about how the raw materials and the supply chain should work. And all those memories just flood up in my mind. And it is this Sai student community who was so lucky, so privileged, so blessed to have been able to see Swami when he was so vibrant, he was so active, participating in the thing which was important in our life. He would enter into that zone. So for the MBA boys, management degree was important. He was interacting with them through the medium of what mattered to them. And then I remember one day in the audiovisual room, he came in and he spoke, and the speakers group, I was part of the speakers group again, I was allowed to be there with the first batch boys, and he materialized a huge pendant. And what he did was he walked amongst the rows in the audiovisual room, showing each one of us the pendant that he had materialized. It was this big in size. And then we were wondering, why is Swami making us see the pendant and observe it so closely? He went back to the place where he was speaking from, and he blew on it, and he changed the color of that pendant with 3 breaths. Now you may wonder, why is Ravi narrating this miracle? Swami has performed hundreds of such miracles. Swami gave me a ring and in a private interview in 1990, and then it was very loose, and then next morning he called me back in the private interview room and he said, "Dunapota, he buffalo, why didn't you tell me that the ring is loose?" Nobody except myself knew that the ring was loose. Then he took it, he blew on it thrice and gave it back to me, and it fitted perfectly. But what stands out to me, and that's a point I want to make to you, just because Swami performed so many miracles, and miracles were commonplace to us because we were fortunate to be around this divine being from whom miracles were flowing, because that was his nature. The extraordinary events that happened around Swami were naturally associated with the life of a divine being. But what is important for us is to ensure that we don't allow our minds to make the miracles that he performed as commonplace. They were common in occurrence around Swami, but let's not forget that those miracles were the highlights, were the symbols, were the indicators of an extraordinary power of love that was manifest in our surroundings, in our environment. We were given the privilege, we were given the choice blessings to be allowed to experience those unheard of, deep, transforming incidents in otherwise very ordinary lives. And now that 10 years have passed, all the more it is important for us to thank Swami, thank Baba, that in our very common lives, he came in and he demonstrated these extraordinary events, all of whom had one purpose, and that purpose was to raise our consciousness and to keep us in the realization, in the memory of the fact that our lives were blessed and that we were around a divine being. More from a little bit of humor, I'll just narrate as a speaker. Many times we would be speaking in front of 20,000-30,000 people, either at the Sera or at another function, and we would prepare a little bit because we were told that we would be speaking on a particular day, and then many times because Bhagavan would not like us to carry a paper. But due to a little bit of lack of confidence, shaking knees and all of that, I would carry a small piece of paper just with 4 bullets noted on it and put that paper in my pocket like this. And when we would go in front of Bhagavan, offer him the rose and then take namaskar, invariably Swami used to do this with me. He used to reach into my pocket and take out that little scribble with all my speech points and keep it with his letters. And I used to remember thinking in my heart, Swami, when I offer you letters, asking you things, prayers, you don't accept them. Why did you take out those bullet points? My whole speech is now with your letters. So Swami was that beautiful human God who was interacting with us humorously, in a fun way, and in a way that endeared him to us. Similarly, touching on my experiences in Brindavan, I had so many interactions in Brindavan. But one thing that I'll mention here is during the summer course, Swami asked me to speak. Before his discourse one day, I think it was 91 or 92, and he did a very strange but very endearing thing. After my talk, I took namaskar. Swami very quickly, his robe was flowing. Very quickly, my hands were on Swami's feet. Very quickly, he put his feet over my hands and he pressed them down. And the beauty of Swami's action was that nobody knew that Swami had turned the tables like this, and I was not able to get up because really Swami's feet were pressing very hard on my hands. And of course, we all want that Swami should, interact with us like that. But at that moment, with some 1,000 students watching the stage which I was on along with Bhagavan, I couldn't figure out what is actually going on. And then Swami made a gesture to the side of the stage to tell the warden to make me get up. And that's when it struck me that here was Bhagavan playing both sides of the game. He had tied me down to his chair, to his footstool, to his feet, and at the same time he was kind of putting a complaint on me with the senior staff, with the teachers, saying that why is this boy behaving like this, and he should not be grabbing all the chance himself, he should go now, I've given him so much opportunity to speak, to touch my feet, and when finally he released the pressure on my hands a little bit and I got up, and for days after that my classmates, my lecturers always said, Ravi, you stayed in the hostel so many years, you should not do such a thing with Swami. And I could not tell them. Today I can relate this beautiful incident, but at that time I could not tell them and put the blame on Bhagavan, because how can you blame such a sweet Lord, the same Rama, the same Krishna? Can you blame him for this Leela? He was doing this Leela for my edification, for my upliftment. And when I go to think about this particular incident, it again tells me that Swami wanted to be in our lives in a way where we can relate to him. And the first step in us recognizing him as a God is to recognize him as the human being who was so much with us, in us and around us. So the first part of my chapters with Swami, I call that as attraction phase. The second phase in this whole, coming close to Bhagavan, learning about him, I like to term it as the alignment phase. Because after having been magnetized and drawn to Bhagavan's feet, what is the change that Swami started to create in my mind, and I also observed it happening within the other students around me? That was aligning with Bhagavan, aligning with a different state of consciousness, aligning with a different approach to life that was highly inspired living, all built around the inspiration that we had by observing Swami. And it is during this chapter of my life that I learned 2 or 3 very important lessons. One is the importance of obedience, and the second is the power of prayer. And as I think about how me as a Bombay boy who was drifting into bad company, Swami brought me into his fold. He made me yearn to be a Sai student. But the next lesson I needed to learn was the lesson of obedience. And then I needed to see demonstrated in my own life the power of prayer. So let me quickly tell you about how Swami taught me 2-3 lessons of obedience. One day during my MBA, Swami called us into the interview room. So we were so blessed that almost every single evening, 7 or 8 of me and my batch mates would land up inside the interview room with Bhagavan. Swami would literally chat with us, regale us with stories, inspiring and jokes and all of that. And one day, the moment I entered the interview room and I went up to sit at Swami's feet, Swami showed his displeasure. And I was worried, what have I done wrong that Swami is, seeming to be a little bit upset. And he looked at my hair and he said, "Duna pota, haircut cheyivachu kada." Now, to give you background, that morning in our hostel, I had gone for a haircut and my hair were very, very trim. And here was Bhagavan kind of challenging my whole ability to absorb what he's saying and telling me that I needed to have a haircut. But by then, so many years had passed around Swami that I knew that however much what he was saying seemed incongruous or difficult to assimilate, it didn't shake me, it didn't upset me too much. And I immediately folded my hands and I said, okay, Swami, I'll get a haircut. I didn't try to, remonstrate and to justify myself and tell Swami that no, I just had a haircut. I just kept quiet. Though I was internally feeling it, but I didn't let that surface. So anyway, I went back to the hostel. Next morning, the barber did not come to the hostel. So, but I was so worried. How would I meet Swami that evening? So I went to the mandir and I went to the barber shop. The barber was so surprised to see me and he said, sir, there's nothing to cut. And I had, just the previous day I had this haircut. But anyway, I told him, no, you trim it. And then I went back to the hostel, had a shower and I went to mandir. Now what happened is, Swami was sitting alone and he opened the door, he called me in. He made a very beautiful remark. He used to, I have this long last name, Mariwalla. So Swami used to call me Mari. And he said, Kya da Mari? You thought that Swami didn't know that you had a haircut the previous day and that he's asking you to have one more haircut. You thought, what is this Swami? What is Swami doing? But he made a very beautiful pronouncement which I carry with me today and I want to share with you. He said, हम ऐसा master है. In Hindi he said, क्या डा मारी तुम ऐसा सोचा. And then he said, explaining why he did that, he said, हम ऐसा master है जो तुमको next step कभी भी नहीं बोलेगा जब तक हमको full satisfaction है कि तुमने हमारा आज्ञा पूरा follow किया. Translated, it means, I am such a master who will never give you the next guidance, the next step you have to take in your spiritual life unless I am fully convinced and satisfied that you have learnt the previous foundational lessons perfectly. And like I said in the beginning, there were so many such events happening around Swami that sometimes I think as we sit back today and ruminate and bring back to our mind this manana, or we are regurgitating those beautiful moments and the importance, the significance of those teachings and those experiences becomes more alive for us. So I want to also leave you with this thought that every time Swami's giving us a guidance or giving us a push or a nudge in a particular direction, remember the lesson of obedience. We are all in this Eastern culture. We are fortunate to have been born in India, to have seen the avatar. In the Eastern culture, the idea of obedience comes much more easily. And we should be grateful for that because that's a cultural thing. It's much more easy to accept that I should be obedient. And I'm sharing this with you. You can have your own thought or your own point of view. But to me, the first step in building a strong bond with the Guru and the Sadguru is internalizing that lesson of obedience. And this early lesson of obedience that I had, and I think I learnt it, even though it was from a worldly standpoint so odd, having a second haircut one day after you had a haircut, didn't matter because Swami was not talking about a haircut. The lesson was not about the physical. The lesson was about my orientation with this Sadguru. And very soon the next higher lesson came. All through my career with Swami, I wanted to stay with Bhagavan. I never wanted to leave him. But when I was doing my MBA, because I was studying so much about management, about companies, this thought started arising in me that I should be in the commercial world, I should do commercial work. And slowly the idea of remaining at Bhagavan's feet, serving him, without any desire for self-gain or, accumulation of wealth, that slowly started to change. And it is at these moments where the intervention of the Master saves us from living ordinary lives, ordinary worldly lives. And that lesson of obedience came in handy. Swami started asking me and another student, Bharat Dutt, who became a lecturer here in the school. Swami started picking the two of us up and telling both of us that I will send you to the US. You will be the first two employees of my hospital. And brothers, sisters, with a lot of warmth in our heart, I tell you, we had more than 40 interviews with Swami. Just him telling us and inspiring us to serve in his hospital after our respective courses. But Swami also sensed that there was a little bit of hesitation in me. And one day he sent Professor Nanjundaya. I was in the MBA class. Professor Nanjundaya, who was at that time the controller of examinations, he came into our area and he called me out and he said, see, Bhagavan is very concerned that despite him inviting you to be one of the first employees of this new hospital that he has announced, you seem to have little bit of hesitation. So I knew now the time had come that all this enjoyment that we were having, getting interviews, that needed to translate into some concrete action, and that I could not be sitting on the fence. If a person like me who had left Mumbai, I wanted to do my medicine, I dumped my medical entrance books and I said, no, I want to stay with Swami. I want to do course after course, but I will live only with Bhagavan. Now, a person like me was having second thoughts. But the grace of the Guru was so much that counteracting, neutralizing those second thoughts that I was having, he was stepping into my life, inviting me to be the first employee of his noble hospital. And I, in my childishness and my waywardness, was still sitting on the fence and thinking it was up to me to make the decision. And here is where the added grace of Swami's love for us comes into the picture. So that evening, I went to the mandir. Swami was sitting alone in the interview room and Mr. Khayal Das was outside. He was the doorkeeper. And the moment he saw me, he said, Swami is waiting for you. So I went into the interview room. With much trepidation, I opened the interview room door and I stepped in. Bhagavan was seated on the chair and he said, Mariwalla, तुमको थोड़ा सा doubt है? You are still not made up in your mind? Do you want to serve in my hospital? And at that point, one-on-one interaction with Bhagavan, it struck me that I was still not fully convinced. Those crazy thoughts were coming into my mind that do I want to dedicate myself to Swami, work in this hospital, I am doing a management course and all of that. And at that moment, Swami helped me, assisted me, uplifted me and he said, don't hesitate. हमारा आज्ञा है, these are his words, हमारा आज्ञा है, which means it is my command, it is my recommended way for you. And he said, it will be good for you, good for your parents, good for the country. And brothers and sisters, what I want you to take away from this, yes, it's a personal interaction, it was one-on-one, Swami is helping one student choose a noble path, an idealistic way of contributing to society, not thinking about his own gain. That is only one level of that incident. But there are other levels, at other dimensions at which I want to invite you to examine this incident. Swami was not worried about my contribution to the hospital. That was a trivial matter. He could get 100 other technology people or what I did later on, clinical perfusion, to run the heart-lung machine. It was not that. The way I look at it is, for births, I must have prayed to Swami that I want to be in your presence. I want to partake of this divine sweetness. But having covered my own eyes with the worldly thoughts, I was now starting to drift. And Bhagavan saved me from that drift, because he knew that it was my innermost desire to be close to him and to see firsthand what is the power, what is the meaning of selfless love. And I'll quickly fast forward at this point to my life in the hospital. I am leaving out my interactions with Bhagavan in Kodai and many other things that happened, but I want to tell you, because many times when I spoke in front of Bhagavan, Swami used to stop me. I used to be narrating some student's miracle or some devotee's incident, and Swami, with so much love and patience, after few minutes of listening to my talk, he would say, "Chal chal ippudu hospital gurinchi cheppu." So remembering that, I am now fast forwarding and taking you into what was it that I saw firsthand as a member of the hospital staff, and how this term that has come to mean temples of healing. So it is called Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Medical Sciences. But from the point of view of patients, from the point of view of the public, it is nothing but a temple of healing. And you know, Swami gave us this beautiful saying, right, which says, three-part saying: duty without love is deplorable. When you see a nurse not bothering to feed the patient or not looking after the patient, turning the patient, it is deplorable, because it is the nurse's duty. The nurse is recruited, paid to perform certain duties, and if the nurse doesn't perform those basic duties, then we call it deplorable. Swami said, duty without love is deplorable. Turn the patient nicely, feed the patient with love. And then the second level is duty with love is desirable. It is a society, the world accepts it universally, that when you perform a duty, you do it with love. But Bhagavan establishing the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Medical Sciences falls into the third category. And as I say these words to you, I'm not just trying to do some oratory here and just tell you about the importance of the hospitals. To me, for no less than 14 years, every single day, I got that proof and evidence of what is divinity. Divinity is not the one who creates vibhuti or who gives darshan and has people falling at his feet. Love in action translates into love without duty is divine. And that statement became such a reality to me for those 14 years that I traveled to the hospital, and then I would come back to the mandir and I would see the person, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who thought about this idea against all opposition, including disbelief from everybody around him. But he never bothered about it. He set a mission, he set a goal, and he single-handedly worked to deliver on that mission. It was not an achievement. And I often think, when you consider love and power are self-contradictory. Love has no power and power has no love. If you look at power, there is no element of love in it. Power seeks to control, to rule. Love only knows to give. Love does not control. Love does not want anything for itself. And brothers, sisters, for you may have seen the love of Sai, but I saw the love of Sai translated into the hospital when there was no need for Swami. There was no compulsion. Nobody came and fell at Swami's feet and said, "Please, Swami, create and establish this hospital." And many times when Swami explained why he took this tremendous but challenging step of establishing the hospital. You have to understand the context, the environment in this country at that time. So one day Swami said in the discourse that he had read about this woman who had mitral valve disease, and there was nowhere in the country that she could get a mitral valve replacement because it was completely beyond the budget even of the middle class. And that is one of the things. And the second piece of context what I want to lay out for you is, today you see cardiac surgery happening in so many places, but in 1991 cardiac surgery was happening only in about 5 or 6 key big cities in this country. Cardiac surgery happening in a village like Puttaparthi in 1991 is not only inconceivable, and I'll tell you, when Swami made the announcement in 1990, nobody was able to believe that really this hospital will come up. And I, as a student, Swami was a hero for us. Students never ever thought, oh, is it possible for Swami or not? But there were a lot of people around me after the discourse talking about this. Senior people, they were saying, I don't think Swami can really pull this off. Swami has established a college, primary school and a general hospital, but this is a completely different ball game. And they were right. They were right. Only thing is, they were wrong about who it is who is trying to achieve this, and the fact that there is nothing in it for him or for the trust to achieve. And then there were other people who said, because of the daunting nature of this work, what they will do is, they will do some pacemakers and then they will say, okay, we did cardiac surgery. And brothers, sisters, I myself was in the operating theatres. On the first day, we did 4 open heart surgeries. You have no idea about what goes into performing an open heart surgery. 2 years later, some of the doctors who worked in Delhi, who had participated in the opening of Escorts Hospital, which is a famous medical center in New Delhi, came to work at our hospital and told us that for 1 whole month they did 1 open heart surgery to stabilize the processes. It is a Herculean task to get the equipment, nursing, manpower, oxygen, nitrous oxide, foreign, the other consumables to be managed in a way that ensures the smooth running. Patients require so many emergency items. You have to stock them, you have to make them available, and it is impossible for a new medical center to anticipate and manage those needs. And here, with Bhagavan's blessings, 4 open heart surgeries were performed on day 1. And I take great pride in sharing this with people that, I received a gold medal from Bhagavan for my MBA, which I had just completed. So I had to actually beg Swami the previous day that, Swami, I know it's the first day of opening of the hospital, but I'm getting gold medal from your hand, Swami. Is it okay that I come after the operations are completed? And Swami said, yes, come. So when I came from the hospital and I sat there in Shanti Vedika, then my name was called. Swami put the gold medal round my neck and he looked at me with such joy, and I'm sure he infused my body and my mind with grace. And he asked me, operations aipoinai? See, the Lord who was the Chancellor, he was managing, must have been over 100,000 people in the stadium. He also knew that this boy not only is receiving the gold medal, but he is one of my first staff in the hospital. And he asked me, Manchiga aiponai, are the operations well done? Even then, His mind was on the running of that great institute which he established. And how did he establish this institute? He sent us to Delhi. We were a group of 6 boys whom Swami sent to Delhi. And at some other point of time, I'll narrate to you the many incidents that happened. So Bhagavan wrote letters to us. He wrote individual letters to us. He wrote group letters to us. And then when we came back we were sitting in the mandir for many days. We were trained in our respective areas of work in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And over there, I'll tell you in passing, Professor Venugopal one day, he call all his registrars in All India Institute of Medical Sciences and said, in the ICU, and he said, if you all medical students had the sincerity of these Sai Baba students, you would be such better doctors. Because I'm not saying this with any pride, but I'm just narrating to you what is possible. We were non-medicos, we had not studied medicine, but because we were in the operating theatre and there were congenital heart surgeries going on, congenital heart surgeries are very complex even to understand. They create flaps, they reroute the blood to different chambers, transposition of great arteries, tetralogy of and we had drawn and understood those things in hardly 1 month of being in that great medical institution. And Professor Venugopal, who later on operated here at Parthi many times, brought his team, could not help appreciate what sincerity can achieve. You don't have to have years and years of training. All you need is sincerity. And we were able to manifest that sincerity because we were undistracted. We were doing this for Bhagavan and we wanted to please him. But I want to tell you that this doubt that hit many of the senior people around Swami, and they thought, really, can Swami pull this off? This is not an ordinary institution to establish. You need oxygen, you need instruments. We imported, I don't know how many lakhs of rupees worth of medical instruments. They had to be organized into different cardiac sets. But over and above that, where was the water in Puttaparthi? Where was the power? Even in later years, I remember 12 hours power used to go in Puttaparthi. But never once did the generator system, the backup generators or the UPS fail. Swami instituted such a fantastic infrastructure to run this place. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to name the hospital. In 2005, I worked in Bangalore city and the cath lab used to fail in the middle of procedures. That is unthinkable for a Sai Baba institution. Let alone in the middle of procedure, the instrument should never fail. And I'm not trying to compare with other institutions, but I'm telling you that despite the fact that Swami made a completely free hospital where patients don't have to pay a naya paisa, blood, laboratory tests, outpatient tests, surgeries, recovery, and later on even anticoagulants were sent by mail to patients who could not afford it as part of post-operative care. All of this he established in such a seamless way that nobody knew about it. But this doubt is something that accompanies all our human minds. And I'll tell you, though initially when Swami made the announcement, I didn't doubt it. Later on, how that doubt started creeping into my own mind. So on 4th November, Bhagavan finally packed us off to the hospital. There were no employees. We were 6 students. We went in the hospital bus. Dr. Bhagavan was there. He took us around the hospital on the ground floor. After that brief tour, we went to the central dome. Then I wanted to go to the operating room. And there were a few Sevadal there. So I said, where is the operating room? So they said, it is on the 1st floor. And how do I go? They said, you have to go like that. I said, where are the staircase? There was no staircase. They were laying concrete slabs and they called that the staircase. So that is the first time at which doubt started to creep into my mind. Then anyhow I got to the 1st floor and there I said, somebody showed me that this is the operating room. So I was a very inexperienced boy. I came from the very well equipped operating rooms in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and I went into this. There was not a single piece of equipment in the operating room. Somebody was cutting slabs and tiles. There was another person fixing up some electrical points. I started to do a mental calculation saying, today is 4th November. Swami has announced that the hospital is going to do cardiac surgery on 22nd November. And human doubt started to creep into my mind. At lunchtime, there was no facility to eat lunch in the hospital premises. So we went back to the mandir. I want to tell you the importance of timing in the interactions that Swami has with us. And I am not exaggerating this any level. We landed up near the canteen gate in that yellow bus that was given to the hospital. And we got down. At that moment there was some commotion, 1991. And we looked towards the mandir and we saw a few students running towards the mandir veranda. And we could see in the distance that Swami had come out on the first floor balcony of the mandir. It was a very rare darshan. And we did not have the, guts or the courage to run towards the mandir because now we were employees, we were staff. So we stood there. And Swami, seeing us under the bus, realized that, oh, these are hospital boys. So he beckoned to us. Now see what happens. We ran there and we were standing under Swami. Swami was up there. And Swami said, hospital dekh ke aaya? He was so excited. And I said, yes, Swami. And he said, kya laga? Kaisa hai hamara hospital? And at that point, in all the foolish immaturity that I had as a young, inexperienced boy, this thought started to bubble up in my mind that I should mention to Swami that, Swami, the hospital is not in a state of readiness to go live and to launch and to do cardiac surgery in 10-12 days. Not realizing in whose presence I was standing. And the Sathya Sai Baba whom I had worshipped as a student, today I was forgetting and I was bringing my scientific thinking, my analytical thinking, and it was clouding my devotion. And that is my invitation to all of you, that never let our analytical thinking, our factual thinking cloud our belief in the capability, the love, the protection, the guidance of this extraordinary Lord. You and me are so used to seeing ordinary things, politicians, leaders who are self-seeking, that we sometimes project those ideas on Swami. But we should never let that happen. And as I stood there, about to make the biggest mistake of my life by bringing out my negativity, Swami stopped me and in deep love, he said, ऐसा हॉस्पिटल दुनिया में किधर भी नहीं. And I am so grateful to Swami that he prevented me from negative utterance. Analytical though it may be, factual though it may be, but it is negative. And through his positivity, brothers, sisters, you and I all know that this hospital actually there is no hospital like this in the world. And it is not that Swami willed the hospital should be great. Through human effort, he motivated each one of us to do a great job. And this hospital was completed. It went live. And as I told you in the beginning, we did 4 open heart surgeries on day 1. And for years, I worked for 14 years in this hospital. I was blessed. Every year, the first 4 patients whom we had operated, there were 2 kids and 2 adults, would be coming back for follow-ups. And I remember the sense of gratification, the sense of fulfillment that we had in participating in this beautiful mission of Sai. So let us not allow our negative thinking and what we learn from interactions with the ordinary world to influence our interaction with Bhagavan, internal though it may be. So I've spoken a lot of different incidents. I told you first about the attraction phase of my life, those chapters of my life where I was attracted to Bhagavan, where he played with us, he played pranks, he hid the drumstick, he put his feet over my hands and didn't let me get up. Those were the attraction phase. As an employee of Bhagavan, I had the opportunity to align with that divinity, to see that he is not taken up the hospital as a function of his duty to society. It was a bonus that he gave the world. And 10 years later, seeing that no other corporate house, we talk about corporate social responsibility, but the Sathya Sai Trust, Sai Baba, without external help, established one hospital. And after 10 years of waiting and seeing that no other organization has the courage to follow in his footsteps, he established yet another hospital, even bigger, with a massive campus in a city like Bangalore. And just think about it. Love without duty is divine. How these hospitals, how his contribution for social welfare, stands out. So that is what I like to call the phase of alignment in my life. After the magnetization and attraction, Swami realigned our hearts, our thinking, to understand what it means to be in the divine presence, what it means to work for God as the head of your institution, how doubt and negativity should not be given a primary place. And today, when I have completed those chapters as a Sai student and as an employee, I used to remember Swami standing on the portico and telling us, "You are all frogs in the well. These devotees, they come from far, they are like bees. They have experience." And it never struck me. I used to be perplexed when Swami used to say, "You are frogs in the well and these are devotees, they are like bees, but they have experience." And it never occurred to me, what is this experience that Swami is talking about? Now that I have been out in the world for some 15 years in this chapter of my life, I know what is that experience that Swami is talking about. As a Sai student, when my father had a heart attack in Mumbai, I just had to go 1 kilometer from hostel to Mandir, give a letter to Swami. Swami said, "Heart attack? No problem, call your father." He called my father into the interview room. He rubbed vibhuti. This happened in 89. Even today, my father, with Swami's grace, is the picture of health. He is 85 years old, and that act of rubbing, Swami physically rubbing vibhuti on my father's chest, is become so meaningful today to me that I know the power of love. As I said, love has no power, but that love of Swami, through the symbolic act of rubbing vibhuti, I just had to go from hostel to Mandir and pray to Swami, and our problems were solved. And when Swami said, "These devotees, they are like bees," now when I entered the portals of the world, I faced the problems that people out there in the world, all of you, are living with. Difficulty in getting around, traffic jams, inability to get the work of your map to your capability, the level of work that you should be doing, the promotions that you should be getting, which you deserve. I started to face all these things, and that it is at that point that I remembered that Swami is saying, these people come from outside, but they have experience which all of you don't have. And in these 15 years now, I have gained that experience, that just like I had to go from the hostel to the mandir, I don't even need to beg Swami or pray to Swami for solving the problems that I as a person in the world am facing. Because I have had the experience that there is a layer of protection. Swami is guiding me and all of us like the eyelids guide the eyes and protect the eyes. And the biggest realization that I have had is that we did not enter into a business contract with Swami. We didn't have to negotiate that, Swami, I will do japa, or I will be your student for so many years, or I will work in your hospital for so many years, then you please protect me from accidents, then you see that I have a good house, I have a good bank balance. No, there is no bargain that we entered into with Swami. And that is the most touching aspect of my life today, as a person who got those sweet experiences at Swami's feet. You know, one day Swami passed me in the mandir and I was able to touch his feet 29 times. I had 29 opportunities of Pad Namaskar. Those blessings of that time period, as I regurgitate and do manana on them, I realize that the relationship with Satya Sai Baba was not a contract, was not a negotiation, was not a bargain. It is a heart-to-heart bond which he established. Despite my waywardness, my narrow-mindedness, my narrow thinking, my limited thinking, he established that relationship, nurtured it. And today, it is due to that beautiful relationship that there is a layer of protection, there is guidance, there is a feeling of acceptance in my heart. And there is also an urge to explore those spiritual truths that he taught us. When we were in the interview room, hundreds of occasions, when we would come out, we would joke with our other classmates and say, I didn't understand all that Swami said, but I counted that Swami used the word Atma 59 times in those 2 hours that we spent. Then another boy would joke and say, not 59 man, 63 times Swami used the word Atma. But as a person who is living in the world, I have children, I have a job, I have to pay my bills. The importance of what he was teaching us then shines in my heart. And there is an urge now. Why did he use the word Atma 63 times in the interview room, talking with adolescents? Why did he implore us to have purity of thought? You know, one day we were 7 students in the interview room, and he materialized with a wave of his hand a massive piece of barfi. And we didn't know that it is barfi at that time. Barfi is a Indian rock candy. And he threw it to the first person who was sitting next to him and he said, try to break it. And he said, if your thoughts are pure, you will be able to break this candy without any effort. 7 of us tried. We passed shamefully, we passed the barfi piece from person to person. One of us was so innovative. He took out the handkerchief thinking that, oh, we cannot grip that candy. You know, rock candy, it becomes slippery because so many hands have gone on it. It is melting, the sugar is melting. We tried to grip it with the kerchief and then tried. None of us could break that candy. And then Swami said, Chi, you are Sai students? that means your thoughts are not pure enough. And he took the candy back, and in one click he broke it. And then he kept on breaking that candy into 7 pieces, and he gave it to us. And he said, this is not divine power. This is the purity of this body. That I have conducted all the work over these 70 years in such, without even one bad thought, that gives me the purity. So he was imploring us, he was demonstrating to us what he wanted us to practice. Sense control, purity. Those were the lessons of that adolescent period of our lives. Today, Swami wants us to be very clear about the inner search, about the quest to learn about our own reality. What is our reality? And Radio Sai does such a tremendous job. You can, when you're traveling, just hit the app and hear a discourse of Swami without having to, do multiple clicks or search. And invariably, over the last 5 years that I have been listening to Bhagavan's discourses, I always pray to Swami, Swami, give me the right guidance. And though the discourses happened in 1998 or 2002, I get relevant guidance from that discourse for my particular stage in life and my particular need. And that is the miracle of Sai, that is so personal and so individual. He continues to perform those extraordinary feats in our individual lives, even without our inviting him to do it. So it is a bond of love, it is a continuous presence, and now there should be in all of us this sincere search, this sincere quest for self-realization. And we have to mature, we have to get past the feeling of satisfaction that we did 4 bhajans, or we set up the altar, or that I did the japmala. And Swami has often said that as Sai devotees you should realize that you cannot find the soul by using the mind. And I'm just sharing with you what is it that I am working on today. As I worked on things at that time as a Sai student, and when I was in the hospital, I worked on different self-improvement aspects that Swami was bringing up for us to work on. Today what I am working on and grappling with is Bhagavan's teaching that the mind is always going to lead you astray. And he describes it beautifully as saying, the thief in the garb of the cop is still the thief. So the mind is very smart. The mind continuously brings up to us wrong ideas, and we have to suspect the mind. We have to be alert that the mind is not playing a trick on us. And our quest, as it is said in the Gayatri Mantra, Tat Savitur Varenyam, I worship you, O Sai, who was in the interview room with us, who played with us when I touched you 29 times one evening. That same Sai who manifested externally, who rubbed the vibhuti on my father's chest and cured him, that same Sai is within my heart. Today, that is the lesson that Swami is teaching me. And he's saying, while you reflect on my glory and recount my incidents, remember that Sai is within you. And stop believing in the mind. Remember that the mind is nothing but the thief in the garb of the cop. So what the mind is telling you, don't pay heed to that. The mind is a tool for you to get around. It's a computer that I have equipped you with. But don't give the mind that deep sense of control over your life. And that thoughts start with a very innocent way. But those thoughts congeal and become desires. And the mind is nothing but a bundle of desires. So when Swami used to tell us thoughts become desires and desires become the mind, We were in the presence of the Lord. We had no need to pay attention to that. But nevertheless, He taught us those sublime spiritual truths. And I think today, as we recount those incidents and those memories, we are truly honoring the memory of Swami if we dwell on these concepts of the soul and the Atma, of the mind as the thief pretending to be the cop and misguiding us, and on the Gayatri mantra, which has three aspects: worship, Tat Savitur Varenyam, I worship you, but it is not an external worship. Swami, how long will I worship you as that beautiful picture? Yes, Swami, that picture reminds me of those lovely interactions that I had with you. But Lord, you are within me. Tat Savitur Varenyam. I worship that power that is seen in the Lord Surya, but which is within me. That within me is the most important descriptor of this current chapter of my life with Swami. So I want to leave you with the feeling that start with those first interactions that you had with Swami. Go back, remember the mischief, the prank, the love, the teaching, but think of the alignment. Attraction led to alignment. Think of how Swami tried to align your way of thinking with his way of thinking. How he took us from duty with love, duty without love, to duty with love, to at least start appreciating what is love without duty, as symbolized by these great temples of healing. But today, the most important lesson which I want to request all of you to participate in is making that journey towards finding our inner self, and to find that external sweet Sai as present, ever present within our own hearts. And in that way, if you and I, who were fortunate to be around Swami, to see him, maybe to have his darshan, to have varying degrees of interactions with him, it doesn't matter whether you were in Swami's residence or you were a student or you were a devotee, but if we have to become his messengers, it's very important for us to graduate, to mature, and to realize that what he wants us to do is make that inner journey, that inner quest to finding him within us. I want to thank you all for the opportunity. I hope you have some takeaways, and until the next time, wish you all a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you grow in the image of Sai. Jai Sai Ram. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ravi, for taking us through your wonderful experiences with Bhagavan, spanning over 3 decades. I'm sure you have not even covered 30% of your experiences, given the time constraint. Maybe at a later date, we will have the opportunity of listening to you again. The key highlight which I would like to share is that even though you shared your personal experiences with Bhagwan, you brought out a much larger message for all of us by focusing on the significance of each of the words spoken by Bhagwan. So there was a seamless connectivity all through your talk, rather than listening to each of the experiences as standalone episodes. For example, the haircut episode which you narrated, Swami asked you to go for a haircut one day while you were in the interview room, even though you had just had one the previous day. Now, anyone at that age bracket would be tempted to say, Swami, I just had it yesterday. But then You obeyed his command without assigning any reasons in defense. That is so total surrender, which Bhagavan expects from his students and all the devotees. The second experience you narrated with regard to your plans to join the commercial world after obtaining MBA degree from Prashanti Nilayam. However, Bhagwan had some other plans for you in his divine mission. Obviously, you had this internal struggle for a while, but again at the end of it, you obeyed his command and joined Sri Sathya Sai Higher Medical Sciences as one of the first employees. Again, through this experience, the message you have conveyed to all of us is, in short run, sometimes we may feel an opportunity is lost, but in long run, one can only gain and gain when we listen to Bhagwan completely. These two episodes, these two experiences have been very personal to you, Brother Ravi, but the way you have narrated has given a very loud and clear message to all of us. Dear Brother Ravi, that has been your strength ever since I have known you since 1982, being part of Sri Sathya Sai Higher Secondary School. On behalf of all the listeners here, I would like to once again sincerely thank you for putting together your thoughts and sharing with all of us. I would also like to take this opportunity of thanking the entire Samarpan team who have created such a wonderful platform for all the devotees of Bhagavan to listen to various speakers narrating their experiences with Bhagavan. Jai Sai Ram.